Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube? It's SCL0320 representing JVS. I didn't think I would do this way, but I really need to get this off my chest. So this is going to be my official review for Venom. This is Sony's attempt at creating what they would call their Venom verse, which is basically Venom with the disillusion or disinclusion of Spider-Man, as it were, in any capacity. So I apologize if this is not the best means, but I'm gonna try to hurry through this. So this is starring Tom Hardy, Michelle Williams, Riz Ahmed, and a number of other interesting cameos and surprises that I'm not gonna go into here, but I will leave at the very end some specific things I have to talk about, because this review, I'm really gonna be trying as passionately about it as I can, because there are certain things about this film that very much so do work and are very entertaining. One thing I'll say, as a film in general, I was very much entertained. The whole entire movie, I was pretty much entertained from the beginning to the end. Like, now, the comic book side of me and the critic side of me are gonna have different things that did not work. And I'm gonna try to my best to kind of roll through those. But let's talk about the cinematography. Cinematography and some of the fight scenes and the action scenes kind of roll to me like a 90s grade, action film. Like, even some of the, comedic wit and certain things that happen with some of the action moments very much so feel like a 90s film. But the CG for Venom, I think works. I think this does a really good job with it. I don't know if they was in the hands of somebody like James Cameron, or like, I don't know, like somebody that is a pioneer of visual effects, then I could say, the visual effects for Venom in itself would be pretty amazing. But I think this was very serviceable, and I think it actually paid homage to what the comic book incarnation of the look and the visual immersion of what Venom is supposed to look like. Now, the acting. The acting, to me, the biggest highlight I can say is Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy nails this. He is fully committed to whatever they need for this version of Eddie Brock and this version of Venom to be. He commits to it entirely. Now, in the very beginning of the film, there are certain things that Eddie would do. I was just kind of like, what are you doing? But what did surprise me were certain moments about his backstory and who he was. And I think that Sony dropped the ball with not going into where he was before San Francisco. This movie takes place in San Francisco, and they mention certain things about his past, and they don't really go and push the envelope like they really should have. Like, they mention like where he was previously as work. There's this thing that happens with the space shuttle that is a mention of something that I can't talk about here that I thought was a really good nudge, because what it did to me, it tried its best to try to connect to some semblance of Spider-Man and, comic book accuracy, Eddie Brock. Okay? Now, Riz Ahmed, he is a villain in the story. This is evident. You've seen with most of the trailers that he does have a symbiote on him. The symbiote's name is Riot. I think Riz Ahmed does a good job, because Riz Ahmed is a great actor. But there was never a standout moment that I felt like, Riz Ahmed, man, you are just terrible. You're a terrible human being kind of thing. Like, he did some terrible things, but it was like, it wasn't that counterbalance that you want to hate to love a villain. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about Killmonger, and like Killmonger killed his girlfriend just to kill, Claw. All for a means and a purpose. Like, that was the defining moment. Like, Riz Ahmed does do some messed up stuff, but it wasn't anything very notable. There were some stupid moments that happened at the Life Foundation that to me really didn't work. Mainly, there was a specific doctor, like her involvement with Riz Ahmed's character and her end resolve as far as her arc really didn't make any sense. It was kind of like so cringe-worthy and cliche that I was like, why even add this character in there? Because they didn't service the character or the dynamics of the film very well. Another thing that doesn't work in this film to me is that when Venom / Eddie Brock does go all out, or even when the very beginning stages of it, like, people's reactions aren't realistic. They really aren't. Like, if it was me And I was sitting there watching some of the things that, you know, Eddie Brock was dealing with and some of the things that Venom was doing. I would be freaking out. There's one moment in the very end of the movie that takes place in the Gosh Darn convenience store. You see it in the trailers. But I couldn't believe it was real because I was like, man, if I was this person looking at this and I was a store clerk, I would be freaking out. And she didn't. I was like, what? That's not realistic. It's not realistic. And it's crazy because Tom Hardy does such a great job of his methodology. And it's like, when he immerses himself into this, like, you really are just kind of swept away by his performance. One way or another, either you're going to be captivated by what he's doing with the voices, whether you know or not, he's doing the voice for Venom and he's doing the voice for Eddie Brock. Not in the same exact moment. Sometimes it's pre-recorded and he kind of riffs off of himself. But either way, in and of itself, is very well done. And I think that he commits completely to it. He is the commitment of this film that makes this film work. If it wasn't for him, it wouldn't work. The other thing about this film, not only is it very entertaining, it is very funny. The comedy in this is actually really funny. I don't know, some moments don't feel like they should be funny, but they really are. And I think that the director or the producers or whoever wrote this knew that. Now, Michelle Williams' character. I think Michelle Williams, she has some really cool moments. They do some really cool things with her that I really did appreciate. But her character in the very beginning comes off very unlikable. Like, I mean, her reasons why her actions and her motivations and her anger and, you know, her emotions are out of a stupid place. And it kind of just like, it kind of keeps her character in a shell, in a bubble, as it were. And it shouldn't be. As good as an actor as Michelle Williams is, that's not to say she doesn't do a good job. It's not to say that her character is bad. It's just, she's unlikable in the very beginning. They do some interesting things with her towards the middle. And at the end, it kind of just like comes off as this cliche kind of thing where it's like kind of like a Spider-Man trope kind of feel to it. But yeah, let's go ahead and go on the balancing act of the story. The story, yeah. The highlight to me is just watching Venom just do his thing. Watching Tom Hardy be Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock and Venom are the highlights of this film. And maybe that was the most important thing because they nail it. I was like, bruh, I want to see this two fighting Spider-Man today. Give me that today. Because they nail it. Like, I mean, he nails it. He straight up nails this character. This is very much so unlike, you know, the Venom that you kind of know, but at the same exact time, very much so true to form to the artistry that, you know, Tom Hardy is presenting for this character and for this role. But the story, it doesn't do anything to add anything, because the problem is, this is the real issue. I talked about, you know, the fact that they didn't do a good job with the Life Foundation. People don't react to what's happening realistically. But the reality is, if this film was rated R, and I'm not even just going to get on this kick about the rated R thing, I feel like Sony held back. I feel like they didn't allow Tom Hardy to make this his own. In the role he does, yes. But as the story, they don't let it just flush out. Like, it's like there's constraints here. Like, this is a being that legit bites heads off. And like, they talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you don't really see it. And I think that one of the things that works with Deadpool so well is just like how out there Deadpool is. And this movie tries to be out there with being a PG-13, and it just doesn't service the film. That's why I believe that the fact that this movie felt like it was like an hour and 35 minutes or maybe an hour and 40 minutes, and there's just stuff just left off. And I think a lot of that is just some of those gruesome moments and some of those moments that are just kind of like out there. And even some of the language is kind of like a little, you know, pushing the bar there. But nothing about the violence really spoke to me, seemed like it was rated R. But there were some scary moments towards the beginning, some things that happened, and I was like, man, that's rough. But I feel like Sony legit held back, and I'm not sure why. And it's kind of just like one of my friends, one of my homeboys from Three Bad Geeks, one of the comments he was talking about was, why not just connect this to Spider-Man? Why does this have to be disconnected? What is the reason? And I told him, I was like, it felt like Sony had a noose around their neck that they couldn't mention Spider-Man, that couldn't be added to it. That's something that they had to have disconnected. But yet, they make strides in certain things that said that I can't mention here. And I was just gonna leave it at the end of this this review. You know what? I am. When I get to the 10:30 mark, cover your ears, come back and do a watch later, and then come back to the 11-minute mark, and I'll tell you exactly the rest of what my thoughts are. They mentioned Jameson's son. Jameson's son is actually on the freaking ship that brings in the symbiotes. They show Cletus Cassidy at the end of the movie. They freaking include that in New York was where Eddie was, but instead of saying the Daily Bugle, they said the New York Globe. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it right there because I said that I'm going to leave this at 11 mark. But there's certain things that I got to talk about spoiler for you. So we're at 11 mark. We're safe now. There's just certain things I had to bring up that it really does service the fact of my claims that Sony really tried to play it safe, and they really shouldn't have. They really should just went all forward. And I think that the movie itself is very entertaining. I think the movie itself is very entertaining. And I think all of that is built on the dynamic that your boy Tom Hardy nails this role. He gives it his all. He's funny. Some moments don't work. Some comedy moments that he does don't work. And like I said, because of the way that the outside world is interacting with what's happening, and it's kind of just like, are y'all used to seeing metahumans? Is this something that's just a normal thing? That's why you're not like reacting the way that a normal human would be? Maybe that's the reason why. But either way, if I had to give this a review number, I'd probably give this a 6.5 out of 10. It's very entertaining. It's actually really fun at times. And I think that as a character, they do a really good job with Venom, with Eddie Brock, that I would like to see this version of Venom in its own world with Spider-Man. I would like to see Eddie Brock interacting with other Marvel MCU characters. I think that there's a market there. I think that there's something that they could really do some gold with. But I don't know that Sony, I said it before, I don't know that they know how to load the chamber. I don't know they know how to load the guns. They got the ammunition there, they got everything there, and they just didn't pull it off the way that it could have. That's just the reality of it. But again, I think it's entertaining. I think it's worth watching. You might actually get a kick out of it. I was laughing most of the time and entertained. But I'll tell you guys later. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Have a blessed one. Let me know if you guys want me to do a full spoiler review. I am more than willing to do that. Okay, guys? Peace.